Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton and Matthew Merrett. Guys, how are we feeling going into this game against the Bengals, one of the hottest teams in the NFL?
I would say it can't be any worse, but it possibly could be.
Matt?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to get to watch Jamar play. Jamar has been my boy since day one. So I'm just excited to watch him play because he's such a talent. So the NFL fan inside of me is excited for that. I mean, the Jets fan inside me is definitely dreading that because it could be a pretty chastening experience. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Looking forward to breaking down this matchup today.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of we're kind of reeling still, I think, from last week, still trying to kind of take stock of obviously losing Zach for the next month or so, maybe 3 or 4 weeks at least, and obviously having the prospect of Mike White and now obviously Joe Flacco. We'll get to that in a few minutes. I think it just has a different vibe to it without the prospect of Zach.
It's a somber tone today.
Tone. But I know it's somber, but I think it's also just evident in terms of like the excitement for a game is not there because the prospect of Zach having another Tennessee game and the hope for that every week that we go into isn't there now because obviously he's not playing. So it just has, you are excited for other players, and as we get into it, we'll obviously look forward to hopefully big games from some of the other young players and them doing well. But there's just something different about Zach not playing and not having that potential excitement that there's, even if it's a small chance that it happens, you still hope that maybe that's the case, but that's not there now. So it is what it is. But on this week's show, we'll be previewing the game later on. We'll also be speaking to Jamie from Bengals UK, who was kind enough to jump on, and I had a chat with him yesterday. So that will be playing before our preview. But before that, we'll get into a little bit of news. Okay, so the main news this week was obviously the acquisition of Joe Flacco for a 6th-round conditional pick that could move up to a 5th. David, what's your thoughts on this? I know there was a lot of negativity, but I think it's a bit late. Better late than ever, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what the negativity was about, wasn't it? It wasn't necessarily about Joe Flacco coming in. It's about we had Joe Flacco last year. We decided not to bring him back. We decided not to go with a veteran quarterback in the offseason. And now it seems like that was a mistake. Salah said yesterday they want to carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster or in the building. As Rich Simini pointed out, there's not 3 on the roster because one's on the practice squad. But they want 3 players basically on the practice field, 3 quarterbacks. So I think people just had a bit of an issue with the fact that we had to give up draft capital to get a veteran quarterback when we could have just signed one in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm kind of like, Joe Flacco's a Super Bowl, winning MVP. So Zach can learn a lot from him. And it's not just about what he does on the field. It's kind of how he goes about his workouts, how he goes about his film study. How does he travel? How does he break down a defense? There's so many different things that you can learn from a veteran. And, unfortunately, Zach, I think the Jets envisioned that being Greg Knapp. And I think that's why maybe Joe Douglas was happy not having that really good veteran presence. And unfortunately, obviously, what happened to Greg, we've had to pivot and we've had to bring in someone like Joe. I mean, I don't understand why he's not getting to New York until Friday. I said today in the newsletter, kind of, is he Flintstoning his way from Philadelphia? I mean, that's a 2-hour drive. What's he doing? The trade was done on Monday.
It must be family commitments, things like that. Obviously getting traded from one team to the other. It's obviously, even if it is, you're going from Philly to New York, it's not obviously a massive difference when you consider the size of the country. But it's still, uprooting in certain situations. There may be some family commitments he has to uphold and stuff. So it's one of those things you've got to understand. It's kind of so he's not going to be playing. Obviously, they announced it'll be Mike White will be starting, and most likely it depends on how he does, whether he's inactive, whether Flacco's inactive, or whether he's the backup on Sunday. Matt, what's your feelings about Joe Flacco kind of going forward? I mean, he is going to be, he does have that relationship, obviously, with some of the players from last year, Mims and Crowder, some of the linemen, Ty Johnson. So even if it's a different scheme, different staff, he's obviously got familiarity about the building, the location, and the staff within one Jets drive, right?
Absolutely, and it was interesting to hear when Salah spoke that he said that the Jets actually did want to bring back Flacco last offseason, but he chose personally to sign with the Eagles, and I guess that's probably he saw an easier path to getting a starting job there, whereas the Jets were probably asking him to do this role that he's probably been brought in to do now, which is kind of this leadership mentor role and kind of taking Zach under his wing. Obviously, with the Eagles having Gardner Minshew pushing Flacco down the pecking order, it made sense to move him. I think the benefits are, as David said, it's more about what's going to happen off the field. I don't think over the next couple of weeks while Zach's out, it's going to make a massive difference on the field. I could be proven wrong. He could have a flashback year to prime Joe Flacco when he won the Super Bowl and launching 40 yards down the field. But I think it's going to be what's on off the field, and I think that should go for the whole offense, because getting a fresh voice, fresh perspective, someone who's been there, done that across the league and played at those top levels in that room to give that guidance, to give that support, those small finer details, which I think is where the Jets are falling down at the moment, as they keep banging on about in press conferences. It's the execution of these small things, which in the league like the NFL makes such a big difference on that scoreboard. So hopefully that's where the value is. I think in terms of the trade, obviously some people were freaking out about the draft capital and all of this stuff. I think we've still got 9 picks in the top 5 rounds. There's a limit to how many draft picks you need, and obviously it does give value on draft day, having extra flexibility in terms of moving up and moving down. But in his time here, Joe Douglas is, for some of the criticism he's shown creativity on draft day in terms of moving up and moving down when it comes to trading. So I think that is not something that Jets fans should be worried about when you look at the potential payoff that bringing Joe Flacco in can have.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the only thing, I think from he obviously knows the team. He's obviously got a lot of experience. He could be a great, an example for Zach. The only thing I worry about is obviously if he didn't want to come by his own choice, in the off season, and now he's obviously been traded, so he's almost forced into the role. Do you think that there's going to be, maybe he won't be, he won't be kind of taking on that role with as much verve as you would wish, someone maybe like McCowan did a few years ago?
I think it just goes back to the situation when Joe Flacco chose to sign up with the Eagles. If you look at the situations and track them, the Jets had the number 2 overall pick. There was obviously going to be a young quarterback brought into the building who was going to have the reins. And in contrast, the Eagles' quarterback room was Jalen Hurts and no one else. And I think no one can really hold it against Flacco at that age stage of his career for wanting to go to the place which is going to give him the best shot of starting. And I think that was almost certainly going to be Philadelphia. Obviously, it didn't pan out there. They brought in, I think they had Nick Mullins there. They traded for Gardner Minshew, so they've kind of made plenty of moves around the quarterback position. It's quite a crowded room over there, and I think now the chance to kind of come in here and kind of appreciate that, I think it's fair enough, and I wouldn't really be too worried about it. I think there have been questions raised about Joe Flacco's willingness to mentor in the past. I think there's been some slightly negative comments in Baltimore when Lamar was taken, and then similarly in Denver when Drew Lock was taken, which perhaps doesn't bode well. But hopefully, I think with the time and hopefully an understanding of the stage he's in his career, there will be benefits and value added for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, he is a Joe Douglas guy. Obviously, his relationship with Joe Douglas goes all the way back to when he was drafted into Baltimore. So hopefully he'll come in and he'll do a job. The job is to help kind of keep the team running in the next couple of weeks, and then obviously be assistance to Zach when Zach's healthy. So hopefully he comes in and is the professional that we hope, and we kind of hopefully it has a really good effect on Zach, and we kind of get what we were wishing for all along, where he in that last part of the season he gets that mentorship and he can really take a leap going forward. So yeah, that's kind of wraps up the news. There was just that real news story in terms of injury. David, what's the look at the injury report? What's it looking like?
It's pretty lengthy. It's a pretty
Yeah.
lengthy injury report, but it's not too bad. So yesterday we had a few did not practices. So Tevin Coleman didn't practice. Joe Flacco obviously wasn't there. Bryce Huff didn't practice. Trevor Wesco, Quincy Williams didn't practice. Zach Wilson obviously didn't practice. Ashton Davis was limited. Croft was limited. Lawson was limited. CJ Mosley was limited. Um, so that's quite a lengthy report, but I think the reports are generally quite positive about CJ Mosley. Obviously, it was a time decision on Sunday, and he went through workouts, and it didn't quite work. But I think he's in line to start this Sunday. Obviously, Jared Davis came off IR, so he's back at practice as well.
Yeah.
Not sure if he will start this week, but it's good to have him back in the room. We need as many linebackers as we can get, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing CJ Mosley and Jared Davis actually play next to each other. I mean they were brought in for that whole purpose, and we're in week 8 and we haven't seen that yet. So
it's something like the first time since 2018 that the Jets are going to have both of their starting linebackers starting a game if they both play since pre-Gase years, with Avery Williamson getting injured, CJ Mosley getting injured, CJ Mosley missing a year. So it has been an awfully long time since we've seen the Jets with their starting linebackers on the field, which is pretty incredible. Yeah. The only other thing on injuries is, are we having a punter controversy brewing with Braden Mann getting cleared to return to practice? I think that is the question on everyone's lips at the moment, is what are the Jets going to do at punter?
That is the big question, because Morstead's done fine. Morstead, he's been pretty good.
Well, he is, isn't he? He's a pro. He's experienced, and he's been in the league for so long for a reason. And so, Braden Mann, you hope is a guy would be, has that longevity, and that's where you would want to go ideally, right? Because you have a kicker there who could just stay there for many years. Obviously, Morstead's not going to be a long-term solution, so you would want it to be Mann, but you got to think about each game and giving yourself the best chance to win. So, and and that even includes the punters and kickers, because, like David says, kickers matter, don't they? So,
kickers are people's too. Just remember that. Just remember that. That's probably 45 seconds too long to talk about a punter.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for bringing that up. No one wants to hear that. No, honestly, it is something it's brewing. Just a little decision there that they're going to have to figure out. But just making a point about Jared Davis coming back and finally being with CJ. I mean, if Quincy Williams looked in spurts as good as he did with CJ Mosley's help, obviously, I'm sure guiding him in the right direction and kind of launching him in the right direction when he goes to take someone out. Can you really hope that Jared Davis, being an overall better player, even though he's not the best player in the league, obviously he's a big upgrade from Quincy Williams, and you can imagine that could be a really good duo there. So hopefully we see them soon, and it makes a difference, and we don't see the painful results of a lot of last week, where it was just so painfully missing CJ and any linebacking quality. Hopefully it's just the worst way to lose games, when your linebacking core just can't hold up. So hopefully we get some of these players back in, and we kind of get on with the rest of the season while we wait for Zach, and then Zach comes back and we go from there. It's a bit of an easier end of schedule. So hopefully that's what we're looking at. So I think we'll wrap it up for the little chat on the injury news and the Flacco news, and we'll head over to our interview with Jamie. Okay, so I'm joined by Jamie from Bengals UK, who is going to give us the lowdown on the team that we're facing this Sunday. Jamie, thanks for jumping on the pod.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I was saying with you on Sunday as we arranged this chat that we couldn't be coming after what happened on Sunday evening for us. What happened in Baltimore, what happened in New England. There couldn't be two different sets of fans for, I thought, coming into the season, maybe two somewhat even teams. Maybe you guys are slightly ahead of us going in, obviously, in the third year with Zach Taylor and second year of Burrow. But, it's just crazy after 7 weeks where you guys are, first seed in the AFC. It's crazy. We'll jump into all the kind of the game and stuff in a bit. But first of all, I also like to jump in and ask about the question of how you became a fan of your team. So how did you become a fan of the Bengals?
So back when I was about 11 or 12, I had a copy of Madden. I played my dad a lot at Madden, and I just kept beating him. And I wanted it to be fair, so I picked one of the worst teams on the game. This was Madden 2000, so we're looking at the 2001 Bengals. They were awful, but they did the job for getting a good matchup against sort of Brett Favre and the Packers, and kind of evening our talents out. And I had to wait a while for them to come good. And I guess I'm still waiting. In certain respects, I've still not seen a playoff win, but that will come sometime.
Both me and my co-hosts are also fans of the Jets for 20 years, so we're kind of tortured fans of these teams. We're still, we obviously had a bit of success with Rex in the middle of all this, but the amount of pain that we've gone through, as you can tell, a bit of a laughing-stock team, especially the last 10 years with no playoff appearance, we're also painful. So we share that kind of a kindred spirit in terms of fans of these teams that let us down a lot. So, this year's looking pretty good for you guys, but, you never know where it can go. Each year is what it's to its own. Talking about this year, obviously the off-season seemed to have a lot of negative buzz. There was obviously the Saul versus Chase decision. You guys got killed by, yours truly as well. When I looked at you from an outsider's, I thought, protecting Joe after last year was should have been first, and you should have gone against that with people like T. Higgins still there. I thought maybe Jamar Chase was an extra luxury. There was obviously a negativity in the summer with Jamar Chase not being able to catch anything and all those stories coming out. How did it feel for Bengals fans inside the the fandom without all the national media and the outsiders looking in? And how has the season kind of compared to that?
So last year it looked like we were going to have a very high draft pick. We managed to win a couple of games at the end of the year, which knocked us down into that kind of 5-7 territory. Last year was absolutely awful on offensive line, and it did look from a very long way out that we would be picking Penei Sewell. There was even a banner up at Paul Brown Stadium asking for Sewell going into the off season, but as the draft kind of came along and as all of the process fell into place, it seemed that it was lining up that there was going to be a lot of offensive line around in the second round, and maybe you could get yourself a start at that point. And that's when people started thinking about, shall we get Joe and Jamar Chase back together? Shall we try and reunite them? Something that drove this was that AJ Green was leaving. Now, AJ, the last couple of years with the Bengals, hadn't particularly been firing. He seems to be in a much better place now with the Cardinals. He's certainly helping them out. But there was a need for another receiver, and certainly that space could be filled by Jamar Chase. The Bengals play an awful lot three wide receiver. You'll see this on Sunday. So basically, with AJ Green going, we needed a third starting wide receiver, and Jamar Chase appeared to be perfect for the role. And then we'd gamble on whether we could get a starting offensive lineman in the second round, and that seems to have happened as well in getting Jackson Carman.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of how it's rocked into the season, obviously with some of the negative stories coming out in the kind of preseason time in the training camp, stuff like that. I mean, the season's just gone from strength to strength, and you've really shown how good you are on both sides of the ball. How's that kind of the feeling? Has it come out of nowhere? The feeling from sometimes there's a disconnect between what the national media and the inside people who are inside the team, the diehards know. I think we're being slept on a bit, right? Did you feel that was happening, or was it a bit of a surprise to you too in terms of how good you guys have been?
No, it was a massive surprise to me. I thought, I didn't think we'd be, I didn't think we'd be a good team. I thought we'd be fun to watch. We've got all these offensive weapons, and we'll go into that as this goes on. But it would be kind of another things where we had half a roster. But we just nailed it. We got the draft right. We got 2 starters out of the draft immediately, and it looks like the third rounder, Joseph Asai, who sadly went on IR in pre-season, it looks like he'll be starting next year as well. Our free agency class this year has just been an unparalleled success. And those were players that nobody was talking about at the time. So we got Trey Hendrickson, who was kind of second pass rusher in New Orleans. Everyone was saying that he had some success in New Orleans, but people were saying that was because he was opposite Cam Jordan, and Cam Jordan was doing all the work for him. We got Chidobe Awuzie, a cornerback from the Cowboys, who kind of... he was all right in Dallas. He was a decent starter, but he's come to the Bengals and teams are going after him, and he's standing up to it. He's really making an impact. And we didn't expect the free agency class to actually step up to the plate like it has. And as it looks now, the team's looking fairly well rounded, and it's kind of come from nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the NFL, were caught by surprise about how good the Bengals are, and I think to hear it from, that's the sentiment from people who know the team very well. It shows, how much of a surprise and a pleasant surprise that it's been. It's always fun. Like I said, I wish this season, other than Sunday, I really, rooting for you guys, because again, it's kind of that. When the Browns suddenly took that leap, I know they're a division rival, but another tortured team from a Jets point of view. It's always fun to see those teams do well and hope one day we'll be it's kind of like living through you guys a little bit. As soon as maybe one year we'll be that team who suddenly comes out of nowhere and is not a joke anymore. So, I'll say that. Touching upon. You said Trey Hendrickson, you said Joseph Asai, and that reminded me of Carl Lawson. We'll take a little quick thing. Obviously, we lost Carl in the just before the Packers preseason game in the training, the joint practices with the Packers. Did you feel that Carl, the reason you guys moved on from him and moved on to Trey Hendrickson, who I think that Carl is a better player. Obviously you can tell from I think that the ceiling's high in terms of what Trey Hendrickson's production was like from, he obviously had Cam Jordan across the way, but not that he's not a good player, but Carl looked just incredible before the injury. Do you feel that the injury was something that the Bengals knew was probably going to crop up and they were worried about that, and that's why they let him go into free agency?
I mean, he has certainly been injury prone, and was with us. On his day, he was unblockable, and certainly one of the things that got him the big free agency move was his game on Monday Night Football against the Steelers, where Villanueva, the Steelers tackle, just got bullied by him. But he couldn't stay on the field. I don't think he ever had a season where he started all of the games in it, because he kept having these recurring injuries. We did make him an offer. We made him a very good offer, but there was a point at which we couldn't kind of justify paying the amount for a player that possibly wasn't going to get on the field 18 times a year.
No, it's something that obviously when the injury happened, it was the question that went around whether it was the injury stuff came back up. Obviously, we as he came in as a free agent and we signed him, obviously we knew of that history. We'd done our research on him as he came in, and even before that, we were very much wanting him. He was one of our favourite guys to go after, and we were just over the moon when we got him. As my podcast and loads of the other Jets community were really happy to get him, but it was something that we were like, okay, these are the you list the attributes and the ups and the downs, and that was one of them, was the injury concerns that are there, and then the Achilles injury happens, and coming back from Achilles is going to be difficult. And I think if he puts together a season where he's healthy, I think it's just incredible what he could put together. But yeah, it's definitely a worry going forward, and because that history's there, and this current injury is really bad. So I thought it just reminded me. Obviously, you're speaking to a Bengals fan. You guys have actually seen him on the field and in the orange and black. So I thought it would be a good question just to throw in there. Going back into this week's game, go into it. I mean, it's pretty much, it's unfortunate that it is what it is. I mean, you guys are coming in really, really strong, and unfortunately, we're coming into it. It wasn't just the defeat; we were dropping like flies on Sunday as well. And like, no, Zach Wilson's obviously the headline story. He'll be out for a few weeks, but I mean, it was other injuries. Our linebacker core got absolutely destroyed. We were without CJ Mosley on that day. All the other backups, basically, we ran out of linebackers by the end of the game. So, it's kind of put this game where you guys, I just don't feel we've got the firepower to. It's not really a contest for me to really talk about. Obviously, we'll talk about it further when I'm on your show later in the week. But like, it just seems to be like very much kind of like we're just being served up as another W. Obviously, you guys have to be careful about that. But I don't know. I'm just saying I'm in a very kind of negative headspace right now after what happened on Sunday. More about the injury more than anything. The result is what it is. But going into the game, I think you guys will be in control. But is there a player who is kind of being an unsung hero in your kind of how good you guys have been? Maybe a coach or a player who doesn't get the recognition.
Yeah, I'll pick one for offense and one for defense.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
just to kind of make it fair, and the fact that where we are is because we've had success on both sides of the ball. The offensive player that I'll pick is CJ Uzoma, who is our tight end. He was drafted a long time ago. I think he was drafted back in 2015 and was a backup for quite a number of years. He was behind Tyler Eifert. Obviously, Eifert kept getting injured, so he played sort of sporadically, and at times he's had Tyler Croft and others ahead of him. But this has been the year where he's really stepped out. He had an Achilles injury last year, which he's come back from sort of pretty well. And, he's finding all of the gaps that are being left as a result of people concentrating on Chase and concentrating on Higgins and concentrating on Tyler Boyd. And he's just making plays over and over again. He had 2 touchdowns last week. He had 2 touchdowns against the Jaguars. He's one thing I noticed. I watched the Jets-Pats game earlier on today, and obviously Bill likes his tight ends, and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry did an absolute job on the Jets. And
it goes to my saying about the linebackers, right? Like CJ Mosley. Like he's been playing like all pro level. Like the reason we lost 54, we put up 54 points against us was CJ Mosley. Like we would have lost that game anyway because it was just what it was. But he is just the difference he makes, and if he plays, I don't think it will just be another blowout. Just because he's just unbelievable at seeing. I mean, you saw him at Baltimore many years, right? You saw how good he was, and he's playing like that level. Like he's back to playing at that level. Super hungry after taking a year out with the COVID kind of opt out. And just so without him, it was like we never saw. I mean, it was that defense never played that badly the whole season. It was just getting absolutely destroyed. And the linebackers, we've had to bring a whole lot of free agent linebackers in. To try and see who can come in and fill in the spots. So, yeah, I think CJ Uzama, if you guys need a fill-in fantasy this week, if you've got like a guy out, maybe a Mark Andrews or Darren Waller who are out on the bye, look for CJ Uzama because, most obviously my Jets fans are going to be listening to this. Yeah, dude, we know about what that linebacker core could potentially be without CJ Mosley if he's not playing. So, yeah, CJ Uzama is going to be a good player. I think he's going to have some success on Sunday. I agree with you on that one.
And your name for defense is Logan Wilson, who is the middle linebacker. We drafted him last year. We drafted him in the 3rd round from Wyoming. So he wasn't coming in from a giant powerhouse school. We didn't really know what to expect, and he's just been a beast. He's great in coverage. He seems to be kind of a vocal leader on the defense. He was at one point leading the league in interceptions. I think the dude from the Cowboys has far eclipsed that now, but he certainly has been having that knack of being in the right place at the right time to force turnovers, and he's definitely been part of the renaissance.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some unsung heroes coming through that defense. If no one really expected much of them, and they're playing this well, so it's interesting to. I did know about CJ because obviously of fantasy and that and the effects of that, and but yeah, that's a name that is pretty new to me, and I'm sure a lot of Jets fans. So obviously look out for him, and we're trying to obviously have to deal with that. We don't have tight ends. Tyler Croft's our main tight end. We've got nothing behind him. I think he's injured. He may still be injured as well. So we're very poor in the tight end position, so we're not going to take advantage of that. But I'm sure he'll be, doing all he can to stop people like Crowder and Elijah Moore coming across the middle. So, yeah, that's an interesting name to kind of hear out for Jets fans. A game prediction for the game that you think might happen. Something it could be bold, it can be semi-realistic if you want. It could be whatever you want, really. What do you think might happen on Sunday?
I see. So I'll try and pick a kind one for the Jets first. I do see Ty Johnson getting some success against us. He seems to be the kind of running back that we usually have trouble with. We have a lot of problems traditionally defending misdirection, which is why it was kind of surprising that we did so well against Lamar Jackson. So yeah, maybe Ty Johnson getting kind of maybe not 100 yards, but sort of a good day, 80 odd yards, 100 yards from scrimmage, and a touchdown, something like that.
Yeah.
From the Bengals' point of view, I think I just want to sort of think that the ultimate aim is to make sure that our offense isn't sort of playing for the whole game. That we get ourselves enough of a lead that we can pull the starters in the third quarter. They can spend the sort of last 15 minutes with their feet up. We don't have to worry about the injuries. We've been remarkably lucky to escape without any injuries. Sort of on the whole, I mean, the size gone down and Jordan Evans has gone down, but they aren't sort of huge key players for us right now. I think the Bengals should aim to get themselves in that position where they can put Brandon Allen and that kind of second string offense that we've seen the last 2 weeks against the Lions and the Ravens at the end of sort of fairly significant wins.
Right. Okay. So another one of those ones. Well, that's a prediction that they're going to be in such a lead that they can rest the starters. So yeah, I mean, at this point, I normally kind of look at the predictions that my opponent, that my guest on the show says, and I kind of raise eyebrows and I'm like, all right, okay, because it's something outlandish that's really kind of like putting down the Jets because I've been quite confident each week, but like this week I'm like, yeah, I can see you guys, I can see Joe Burrow kicking his feet up in the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, I can see that. So, yeah, let's see. I mean, from our point of view, we're just hoping for a competitive game. Like we're not even. I just want, with Mike White. I mean, this game is really like. We don't even want to win this game because if Zach Wilson's not playing, you'll know this from last year. Without Joe Burrow winning, you're like, well, if it's not Joe doing it, then it doesn't really matter as much. You just want some of the other players to like the younger players to kind of get some experience, and that's what we've got. We've got a lot of young players. Obviously, we've got Elijah Moore and Elijah Vera-Tucker on the line. We've got Michael Carter in the backfield. So I think from our point of view, we just want something that's kind of like competitive so that they can still sharpen their tools and kind of get those marks of the rookie season on. But we don't really want to win this one. I just don't, because it's like without Zach doing it, it's like if Mike White lights it up, what's that supposed to mean? Like it's not really good for us in the future. So I don't know. I'm in a very weird position as we enter this game. Probably the first time this year I'm kind of quite negative, but yeah, I kind of. I see you with that one. In terms of a score prediction, so you're going for a pretty easy game where you're resting your starters in the third. What do you think's the final score by the end of the game on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either team can expect quite another game like last week. I think the Jets will be better than they were against the Pats. I think the Bengals will not quite blow out like they did against the Ravens. I'm going for 34-13. and hopefully the 34 comes first, so we can kind of take our foot off the gas.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, like I said, I hope for, you mentioned injuries. I wish you guys no success in the game still. I hope we do win, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm in a very weird position. At this point, I don't know. But what we do hope for is injury-free football. I wished that last week with my Patriots guest. That didn't happen for us. So but I still wish it for you guys, especially as you mentioned that word. And obviously what you guys went through last year with Joe. We're kind of going through with Zach a little bit. Thankfully, not as bad. We thought it might be when you see him holding his knee. So we feel you on that one. And like I said, hopefully both teams get out of the game on Sunday unscathed. But Jamie, thanks for jumping on the pod. Is there anything you want to shout out in terms of the guys? I know there are some fans that may like to follow the UK chapters, the UK groups, even if we are kind of opponents and other, fans of other teams. Do you want to kind of throw out the handle and the work that you guys do?
Yep, so I'm here on behalf of Bengals UK. We are at @Houday_UK on Twitter and just Bengals UK on Facebook. We do meetups and sort of podcasty things like this, and all sorts of stuff on the socials, so you can kind of keep up with that. If there are any Bengals fans who have been drawn to this, we'll certainly give it a push when it's out. This is a reminder that we have a meetup coming in Sheffield on the 28th of November. That's for the Steelers game, so keep your eyes out. We'll be at the Red Deer for that one. I just got to hope that this keeps on going on. I can't quite believe it myself, but it has been a fun old time.
Yeah, I'm sure it has been. Like I said, I think it will continue on Sunday. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll jump back to the show with me and the guys. Okay, so we'd like to thank Jamie for that. That was a great interview, and they're obviously riding a big high from last week, and I'm sure there's a good chance it may continue. But let's preview our side of the game. David, how are you thinking about this game? How's your thoughts with Mike White as the starter going into the game against the Bengals?
Joe, I'm not too bothered about Mike White starting. I'm actually quietly looking forward to seeing what he's got, because I just don't know a lot about Mike White. I'll be lying to you if I ever said that I sat down on a Saturday afternoon and thought, today I'm going to watch a Western Kentucky game, because even as a massive college football fan, I don't watch a lot of Western Kentucky. So Zach wasn't exactly playing lights out. I'm excited to see Zach's development, and I'm looking forward to him getting back so we can continue development. But this is an opportunity for Mike White, and I'm quite happy that Salah's decided to give him a shot. I think he deserves it. I think he's done all the right things. He came in, he looked okay. He had a couple of big mistakes last week that showed why he's a backup quarterback and was taking his first reps in 3.5 years. But at the same time, kind of just let's see what he can do. The one thing I liked about Mike White last week was that he took what the defense gave him. So you could see in Michael Carter's numbers that Michael Carter would sit down, he'd check it down to him, and that's quite boring for a lot. But I quite liked seeing it. I quite liked seeing Mike White get some action in the passing game, because that's something we haven't really seen this year.
Mm.
And from his days in Carolina, I thought we'd see a lot more of Mike White in the passing game, which we haven't done. So I'm quite, I'm not excited about seeing Mike White. I don't think anybody's really overly excited about seeing Mike White. I'm looking forward to Zach getting back, but let's see what he's got. He might surprise us and come out and throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then some fans will be like, "Oh, there's a quarterback controversy in New York. Do we stick with Mike White or do we go back to Zach Wilson?"
I don't even know if I want that. I don't know if I want him to be that good, to do well, because that is just the tiresome narrative of that. We'll start stoking up, and it is what it is. I guess my thought is that I would like to get big games from Elijah Moore, potentially anything that could kind of boost their ability. Get the ball to Elijah Moore short, and then let him do the work. Really rely on their ability to do it. Same with Michael Carter as well. which you kind of showed last week. I think that's a recipe for success to an extent. In terms of letting them do the ability where Mike White maybe doesn't have the ability that Zach does. If he can get the ball to the guys who do have some ability, let them win their matchups. And you saw what Elijah Moore can do to a guy who basically had him dead for rights, and somehow he juked him out and got the first down last week. So on that play early within the first half, wasn't it? So I think it's kind of more of that, please. More Elijah Moore, more Michael Carter, and just a little bit more inventiveness in terms of trying to throw a little bit more trickery at the opponent. Let's empty, as other people said, let's empty the bag a little bit of some of the plays that must be there, because just let's give it a go. I mean, at this point, it's worth doing it for the rest of the players to have a competitive game, even if we're not measuring Zach this week. So that's kind of my thoughts. Matt, what's your thoughts about the game?
I think the important thing for the entire team and coaching staff is you can't use the injury and starting Mike White as an excuse in any frame of mind. I think Salah will know this better than anyone, having been in San Francisco, and they were starting Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard in when Jimmy Garoppolo was out, and they managed to put up results and performances. And across the league over the last 5-10 years, we've consistently seen teams stay competitive with their backup quarterbacks. I mean, last year the Bengals, for instance, I think they won the same amount of games, if not more, once after Joe Burrow's injury. And that's not to say that their backup quarterback was better than Joe Burrow, but they still stayed competitive and they put on a fight and an exciting performance on the field, and they stayed in the games. And I think that is what the ask has to be for the Jets. I think it's so easy, and you see it on Twitter and like social media when you're following the Jets, is it's almost like the game's already been written off because of the injury to Zach. And would we have a better chance of winning if Zach was playing? Absolutely. But what's important is that the coaching staff, the players, don't let it set themselves up for failure. Because I think against the Patriots game, once that injury happened, it kind of felt like they all just wanted to get out of the stadium. There wasn't any fight or drive, as mentioned on the recap podcast earlier this week. Mm-hmm. It's the NFL and it's not an excuses league. So that's what we need to see, is kind of the driving thing, and kind of how they approach the game should be, we're going to win this game. Regardless of who's starting at quarterback, regardless of the circumstances, that's what we want to see. And I think there are a couple of ways of doing that. I think you've got to try and move the Bengals defensive line around. You've got to try and create easier matchups for Mike White. You can't get sucked into this run-pass scheme that we keep ending up with LaFleur and giving Mike White's 3rds and 8s, 3rds and 9s.
I'm sure we won't. Like as David said, now that Zach's out of the way, it's all going to run smoothly, aren't we? You're going to get a first drive touchdown, and and then follow that with probably a field goal after that, and 10 points on the board in the first quarter. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think I could just see the first play of the game being a play action pass, 65-yard touchdown, or something stupid like that, and everyone's going to be like, why didn't you call that with Zach?
Yeah.
Like, why did you? And kind of, I don't know if you saw the LaFleur press conference, and he was kind of like, "Oh, the reason we ran on 1st and 2nd down was to make the quarterback settle in to get him settled." And I was like, "How is that going to get Zach settled by getting him in 3rd and long straight away out there?" It's illogical. The whole process.
It makes no sense.
Illogical.
Like, how do you settle a guy by making his first throw on a 3rd and long? Like, how about give him a chance on 1st down to throw to throw a short pass just to get an easy completion, maybe a gain of 5-6 yards. Nothing major, but just kind of get that first throw out there and that first completion out there. That's how you settle someone down. Don't just run 2 passes where the ball's out of his hands, and then he's pressured into a 3rd and long situation, which obviously then puts pressure on incapable linemen who aren't able to fulfill their assignments every single week, as we see. One specific one I'm talking about.
Who's that?
I don't know.
It really means to talk about ABT like that.
Oh no, it's the other guy with the abbreviation, and not not CMG. The other abbreviation. All our linemen have got bloody abbreviations,
Is it LaFleur must have a play in his playbook?
Yeah,
There must be one in there that's kind of a 90% completion type. This is a safe layup for a quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, really easy. It might only get 3 yards. It doesn't matter if it gets
Just
3
an
yards.
easy
It just gets the
slant.
ball out of his hands
Yeah.
into a receiver's hand.
Yeah.
It's 100% completion. It's 2nd and 7. Then run a play. Don't and I just hated that whole script.
Yeah,
2-week script. I hate it.
Either a high percentage chance on first down, or do something trickery, do something that's going to stand out a little bit. Just try and just mix things up again. And that's we had last week going into Foxborough, this week against an opponent who is coming in as the number 1 seed in the AFC. We're underneath, in terms of what we talked about on Monday, what the Lions did to kind of they threw the kitchen sink. No, I'm not saying do it completely like that, but try and mix up a little bit. Maybe just shake things up a little bit. The play I said, the play to Elijah Moore that he scored from the touchdown. Maybe you run that on the first play, just to say, well, we're doing something different, just to change up, because we can't. Like you said, we're running on the first down, or the first play of the game. It's going to be a run. They know it, and they just. So if we keep doing it, maybe it's a long con. Maybe like they keep on doing it, and eventually when they need to call the number, when you need to have it in that one game, they'll do something different when they think that, on the 16th game of the season, when we've done it for 15 games, first run, first play of the game, they'll finally do something different and catch someone out, cold. Maybe they're saving that for Tampa in week 16. I don't know. Week 17. I don't know. I don't know literally what they're doing, why they keep on doing the same thing. But please do something different. Like, honestly, you've got to see this finally. They've had 2 weeks to see it from the bye, didn't do anything, got absolutely smashed. You need to go back and look at what you're doing, as we said on Monday. So hopefully just a little bit more. Give Mike Wyatt a chance to not be put in those positions that you always put Zach in, And Zach shouldn't be put in that. Hopefully you learn from that, and those lessons can be learned for Zach when he comes back as well. So, offensively, I guess, I think everyone, when Joe Flacco was brought in, everyone thought, oh, Denzel Mims last year, right? He had a bit of success with him. Some of those throws, I think the Chargers, that catch there, that's a very memorable catch that we had last year from Denzel was from Flacco. So I guess that's one we can look forward to when Mims comes in, when Flacco's in, maybe. But I don't know. We just have to get the young players involved and really kind of get them, reps and good stuff and good things and good success. So when Zach comes back, they've still progressing in their rookie year as well, and their kind of youthful years. So. Defensively, David, how do we stop this offense or slow them down?
I think if I had the answer to that, I'd probably be employed in a very high positioned NFL kind of situation, because this offense it's one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. I think they're tied with the league lead for 8 plays over 40 yards passing, which is usually thanks to Jamar Chase. I mean, they've had 29 or so, 27, 29 plays of 20-plus yards through the air.
Yeah.
I mean, that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase connection, going back to their LSU days and now in Cincinnati, I mean, that is absolutely lethal. I mean, you look at Jamar Chase's kind of stat line already through this year. He's got 754 yards and 6 touchdowns in 7 games, which is, I think it's the most by any rookie receiver in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So how do you stop Jamar Chase? I mean, it's something that nobody's been able to do so far. Right. He can burn you deep. He can take it short and then burn you. He can go over the middle. He can do everything. So they'll move him around as well. They'll move him around. It's not just going to be like a classic when Revis used to kind of be on their number 1 player. You're not going to have a Bryce Hall on Jamar Chase situation. It's going to be a Chase moving around, getting the ball deep, getting it short, and then making it a deep play. How do you slow them down? I don't know.
And that's
the honest answer. I don't know.
Right? They've still got T. Higgins. They've got Tyler Ward, who is so reliable. CJ Uzama's a decent tight end as well, and he's really prospering with all the other receivers around. And then Joe Mixon, who's just a 3-down back who can catch the ball out the backfield really well. And the screen game, I mean, yikes, with Joe Mixon. It's like, I'm very worried in terms of what's happening. If we're going to get beat down there, it's just not a good matchup for the amount of weapons they've got for what we have. I think it starts with CJ being back is crucial. Like if he's back, that gives us a punter's chance of slowing them down to an extent. He's so important. I think not just from what he does himself on the field, but just how he coordinates everybody, behind him, in his own unit, and ahead of him. Like, he's just incredible how it's actually not great that the way that we position that one guy is so important. He literally is the quarterback of the defense, and with him gone, it was just an absolute. It was a different unit. It really was, and so that gives us a chance. But I think even with CJ there, we're going to struggle. We really are. I mean, I think the pass rush has to do something. They have to try and they've got to try and win their matchups up front and trying to disrupt Burrow from getting the ball out. But then they can employ the Falcons' Pat's tactics of just get the ball out super fast. Don't worry, don't go deep. Just go short to Chase and short to Boyd and the tight end. And so that's the thing I worry about a little bit. In terms of kind of how you manage it. It's such a hard thing to manage, and they're in such a strong position against the Jets. D.
Yeah, totally. I think one thing that the Jets are going to have to do is be really, really clever with when they send pressure to Joe Burrow. At the moment, they're kind of around the middle of the NFL in terms of blitz rates. I think they're kind of blitzing on about 25% of their plays. For reference, Tampa Bay currently lead, and they're up about 40%. And it kind of goes from 40% down to 12%. So we're kind of right in the middle of that pack there. And I think what's going to be important, as you say, is it kind of starts with the D-line, is if you can get that pressure with 3 or 4 rushers and sit everyone back, because you are going to need people in the secondary, bodies in the secondary, because they just have so many weapons who can beat you. We saw that Jamar Chase touchdown against the Ravens where he managed to take that quick slant, beat 3 defenders and get around, and you can't be giving up those plays. So I think it's kind of comes from the top with Salah and Ulbrich deciding when they're going to dial up that pressure and when they're going to kind of adopt that kind of bend, don't break mentality, which we've seen, and just play slightly softer underneath. Give that bit of space, those 5, 6, 7 yard drops, and let Joe Burrow do it. I think it is going to be dependent on whether you can get that pressure, and I feel like we say this every week, don't we, when we're talking about the Jets. But if that defensive line can play as well as they did against the Titans, then you're going to really stop any offense that you come up against. Unfortunately, the last 2 weeks, Atlanta and New England, we've got 0 sacks. So we've gone from a 7-sack performance straight down to a 0 sack. And it's like, we just can't do this feast or famine approach. It's not gonna get us anywhere on that defensive line, which is the struggle at the moment, and that's where it's gonna have to be fixed, I guess.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, any success our defense has at stopping any unit, especially a unit this strong, is going to be up front. You got to create. Those guys have got the ability. We've seen it. We know. We kind of tout them very highly. And so they need to show up in a big way to try to help. I mean, it still might not be enough, but they definitely can contribute towards slowing slowing the offense down, keeping the score down, and giving our offense a chance to try and stay up and keep up with them, because that's going to be a struggle with Mike White and the offense that we're going to have to run through him. So, I think we'll transition to a little segment I'm introducing for this week because of a little bit more. Kind of, we keep on shouting into the heavens for what we want to see done, and the different things happen. So I thought we would go into a segment of what we want to happen, and then what we think will happen. So David, do you want to kick off your one?
Yeah, so I think we have to start with Jamar Chase, because that is the thorn that's going to be in our side all Sunday afternoon. So what I'd love to see happen is that Bryce Hall has his main coming out party. He follows them around and he completely shuts him down. I mean, that is a big ask. That is near impossible, it seems, at the minute.
Yeah.
What I think is going to happen is that Bryce Hall will stick to his side. Jamar Chase will move all over the field. And I've just got a feeling he's going to absolutely burn us, because he's just been that good. And we're a young and experienced secondary. If we can't get pressure on the quarterback, then Joe Burrow is going to have all the time in the world to find Chase. I mean, Chase's route running is so good that if you don't get pressure on him, he will eventually get open. Trying to keep him from getting open is going to be just a really tough task for any secondary in the NFL, not just the Jets, but anyone in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have a good game. Joe Burrow and him have this special connection that they've really forged, and it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, it's a great challenge for the Jets. And going back to kind of what Matt said earlier, I mean, I'm really keen to see how they come out and tackle this. Yeah, we haven't got Zach Wilson, but I don't want to see any quit. I don't want to see any, feeling sorry for ourselves because we're coming off a big loss to the Patriots. I want to see him come out with some fight. I want to see him, get into their faces a little bit. Let's just, just try, just show that element of toughness, togetherness, and let's just see what happens. I'm not expecting us to shut Cincinnati out because, like I said, they are one of the best offenses in the NFL at the minute. But if we can just limit them to, I don't know, 25 points, 25, 30 points, I'd actually be quite relatively happy with that. I mean, they're coming off a game where they put 40 on Baltimore.
Yeah.
So, this is a unit that can score points and score them in a hurry. So, I want to see Jamar Chase shut down for the first time this year, it seems. I don't think we will. But by me saying I don't think we will, I hope it happens. So
Yeah.
I'm using that reverse psychology.
No, that's what this segment's about. Is like just admitting what we think might happen, and then hopefully we're wrong on what we think will happen, because we're always wrong with everything else that we say that we predict is going to happen. So let's just a bit of reverse psychology this week. I think with me, it's what I said earlier. What I want to happen is the pass rush. Get to Burrow, make it hard for him. Keep it competitive, keep the score as low as possible, so then we can kind of stay in the game as long as possible, and make it respectable. What I think is going to happen is I think they're going to implement, some of the tactics of getting the ball out really fast, and they'll sacrifice maybe the deep game, knowing that we're going to try and prevent that, and they'll just take what's given with their abundant of Richards that they've got, players to throw to in terms of. I think T. Higgins is probably the least suitable to that short game, but he can probably do some stuff. But the rest of the guys, Boyd, Uzoma, Chase, and then Mixon at the backfield, they have all the weapons that you need to cut the Jets into by 1,000, death by 1,000 cuts. So I think that's what they could do. They have the ability to go long or short. So I'm very nervous about this one, and like I said, hopefully I'm wrong. Matt, what's your one for the game?
So I think what I hope happens is they show some self-awareness and some self-reflection, because the Patriots game was so flat and so lifeless and just devoid of energy for so much of that game, that I hope that we see that kind of that fight, that spirit, because across the league, I mean, you look at the Detroit Lions, and they kind of every week play their hearts out, play with fire, play with passion. And it just feels like the Jets are always this team who just kind of feel a bit flatter. Maybe it's like because we're fans of the Jets and follow them so much more closely, but they always seem to be the team with excuses. So I hope this week that they're able to shake that off, and regardless of the outcome, that we just get 60 minutes of performance with attitude, with passion, with fire. Like the sideline for the Jets just needs to feel a bit. I remember sitting behind them at the London game, and it felt quite lethargic and quite lifeless. And Joe Caporoso made a similar comment on Twitter about how they looked at that Patriots game. I mean, the perfect example of that is when Zach took those two shots, and that should be something that gets you fired up and it gets your juices flowing. Them taking cheap shots on your quarterback should get you riled up, and it just didn't. So I just hope that they show a bit of passion. I mean, Robert Saleh was so famous for it in San Francisco, and I think he's taken it a bit to the other extreme, and in his new head coach role, where he has to kind of show a bit more
decorum, right?
Decorum.
And I think he's going too far. I think he's gone too far,
and
in
I'd just
that.
like to see him inject a bit of passion into himself.
Yeah.
What I think will probably happen on the flip side, and I think the defense with CJ Mosley back, with Jared Davis back, with Marcus May back, I think they will play with that passion and fire and intensity. My worry is the offensive side of the ball, whether they're going to be able to keep it up, with especially if the play calling and personnel usage doesn't freshen up. I think they might fall into a similar rut that we've seen, reminiscent of the Luke Falk weeks when we had him starting, and where it just feels a bit lethargic, lifeless on that side of the ball, and they're just 3 and out, stacked upon 3 on out, and kind of weak drives, and Morstead being the most active player on offense is just going to be a bit depressing.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge for the Jets to even stay competitive against this in the position they're in with the opponent that's coming in. But they have to, they have to show that fight, as you said, show that energy. Salah needs to find that balance between where he was in San Fran as the DC and where he wants to be as a head coach. I think it's definitely been on my radar where he's wanted to be more calm and collective and not show that kind of side where he thinks it may be slightly unprofessional. I mean, for me, fire me up. I mean, when Rex would get fired up back in the day, that was, I love that passion. It comes through, and I think it goes on a young team. They're gonna follow what their coaches are doing, and the vibe that they're setting. You got a very young team, so you don't have many vocal leaders. Like, I think the leaders that we've got a lot of them are quieter leaders, like Corey Davis, people like that in each room. So, and then the rest of them we're a very young team, so they haven't got that kind of that natural, ability. And they're just saying they're following the leader of maybe the coaches and the general vibe that's going around. So I think that's what's really led to that. I don't think they if you look back on it, I'm sure that a lot of them were angry when you see the footage of what happened to Zach. I just think in the moment they've not got that kind of that natural just fire that comes out, because I think they're just following the example of the coaching. So hopefully they get that sorted out as well. But that's just something to come with experience for all of them. So that's going to be for our bold predictions. That's our segment. We're not really going with the bold predictions. It's kind of like we're kind of out of bold predictions for now, at least in this game. Score predictions, at least. Where do you think we are with the score predictions, David?
I don't think we're going to win the game. I don't think it's necessarily going to be that close either. Yeah. So I'm going to go 34-17.
Yeah,
I reckon I think that's a fair prediction for what's happened last week and how the Bengals are playing, given the respect they deserve.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I think the defense will bounce back a little bit and kind of keep the Bengals below 30, but I think the offense is going to struggle. So I'll put it at a 27-10.
Yeah, I'll be about that as well. Then we'll go 31-13. Bengals. So I think they'll sneak up. They'll be around the 30 mark, keep it respectable, but I don't think the offense is going to be able to keep it up. There's going to be too many just struggles against a really good unit that's really doing well this year in that Bengals D. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. I think it's just a realistic look at a very good team coming into play, a team that's banged up and not doing very well as well. So it's kind of yeah, it's one of those things that I think the only hope we have is that we are playing in our black uniform, right? We hope that the Bengals play in that orange, and we have that Halloween theme kind of continue. But obviously they're probably going to mess it up and just like, you didn't get the memo, so we can't have any fun on Sunday. But guys, I hope you enjoy the game to an extent. Hopefully it's competitive and it's not some dreadful stuff that we saw last week. It was so hard to watch. Hopefully we have something that's got some excitement. Some of our young players continue to do well, and obviously Moore had his touchdown last week. Hopefully maybe continues with another one. We hope the youth comes through. Maybe a good performance from someone like Hall against Chase would be very, very good in the absence of not seeing Zach play. So hopefully there's something to enjoy on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see you after the weekend.